David Kenani Maraga, Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya.
This is an opinion piece. Nothing should be taken as facts. I advise Kenyans to use their brains and take everything I say with a truckload of salt. In Kenya, we seem to be in perpetual presidential campaign mode since after post-election violence of 2007, 2008, and maybe earlier, after the introduction of multi-party democracy in 1992. That holds true even today. We just held an election in 2022, and in 2025, you will be forgiven if you thought that we were in an election year. For those who are not Kenyans, we have a 5-year election cycle, which means the next election is roughly 2 years away. The current Kenyan president, His Excellency William Ruto, hasn't stopped campaigning ever since he assumed power in 2022. He has been incorporating the opposition in his government and putting them to work as government apologists. Raila, who was his main rival in 2022, is now his biggest defender.
Unasema Ruto aende. Aende alafu nani ifanyike?
I am tempted to use a quote-unquote prostitute in a brothel analogy, but I remembered that I am a Christian. Anyways, apart from those two long-term KANU and dynasty projects, there is another 52-year-old guy who, if you asked me, should be busy dealing with the elements of the elderly, who has christened himself as the Gen Z president. I don't know if he meant that his grandkids told him that he was a cool grandpa, and his old man brain interpreted that to, "We appoint you our leader." I have to be honest here. I think Maraga is a plant, an agent sponsored by foreign governments. Why do I say so? Let us look at this interesting timeline. On February 5th, 2025, the Star in the following headline: Speculations as former CJ meets activists. One thing Gen Zs have been clear about, at least those that I have had the pleasure of engaging, is that they have no leader. Their movement is amorphous. That is the case, and I have no reason to think otherwise. Who are these Gen Z's protesters who went to Maraga's home? If indeed they were just some guys who went to visit the old man out of the goodness of their hearts, then we have to deduce that the actual visitors with an agenda were the civil society organizations. I am the Gen Z presidential candidate. I have children, and many people have children. We must mentor young people so that they take over from us. At 54, you have not mentored somebody to take over as the president of the nation. You at 54 want to be president, but you're lecturing us that we must mentor young people to take over from us? Anyway, we all know who funds the civil society organizations, foreign governments, and foreign interests. Since he has decided to vie for the presidency, like all politicians, he will take every opportunity to tell us what good he has done. His opposition will also take every opportunity to throw as much mud as possible his way. Most of it will be lies. I have zero love for any politician. I will focus on his shortcomings, as I am sure he and his supporters will take care of letting you know about his achievements. When Maraga became the president of the Supreme Court of Kenya, he had a blueprint. And these are some of the highlights of the Chief Justice blueprint. This is what he said he's going to deal with: enhancing access to justice, clearance of case backlog, integrity and institutional mechanisms, registry and case management, calendaring and citizen-centric communications, enterprise, document and archive management, ICT infrastructure, leadership and governance, and sector reforms. Let us just take a look at how he performed in some of those things he said he's going to do. Enhancing access to justice. Kenyans.co.ke. Former LSK CEO Apollo Mboya wants CJ Maraga removed from office over new laws to centralize graft cases. This one was published Tuesday, 21st August 2018 at 7:20 p.m. Former Law Society of Kenya CEO Apollo Mboya on Monday called for the eviction of Chief Justice David Maraga from office, claiming he had contravened the law after announcing new rules meant to fight corruption. Last week on Tuesday, Maraga directed all applications challenging prosecution in corruption cases and related appeals to be handled by the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division of the High Court in Nairobi. According to a petition filed by Mboya, Maraga's rules limit the jurisdiction of other high courts, which is contrary to the decentralization of governance as provided for in the Constitution. The LSK boss claims the CJ contradicted Section 12 of the High Court, Organization and Administration Act 2015, which requires the Chief Justice to provide equitable distribution of court resources and establish at least one of them in every station across the country. Another advocate, Peter Wanyama, has also called for the suspension of the law, claiming lack of public participation. So, it seems the CJ cannot even follow the law. He decided to give arbitrary orders, which, according to Mboya and Wanyama, contradicts the constitution. So how can we trust him to follow the constitution when he's the president of the nation of Kenya? Let us look at clearance of case backlog. According to a study titled The Case Backlog Problem in Kenya's Judiciary and the Solutions, April 2021 by Leo Kipkogei Kemboi, published on 17th May 2021 on ResearchGate. These are his findings on clearance of backlog cases at the judiciary. Quote, case backlog in the judiciary as of 30th June 2019 stood at 341,056 cases. 66% of all case backlogs are aged between 1 to 3 years, 22% are aged between 3 to 5 years, and 12% of all cases are aged above 5 years. 34% of all case backlogs are aged over 3 years, which is a significant number. End quote. And these are some of the solutions that Mr. Kemboi proposes. Quote, the case backlog have reduced the effectiveness of the judiciary system, making it a serious concern. This brief argues that the delayed decision by the president to appoint 41 judges has constrained the effectiveness of the Employment and Labor Relations Court, Environment and Land Court, and Court of Appeal collectively by 71%. Kenya's bicameral legislature with budget-making powers has to consciously allocate budget resources to the judiciary, which is an arm of government equal to the executive and parliament. On the other hand, the judiciary must apply economic principles in allocating its resources to meet the demands of Kenyans seeking justice. Presently, the bulk of cases are filed and dispensed with at the Magistrates' Court and the High Court. Systemic case backlogs disenfranchise citizens and spontaneously create informal markets for resolution of cases like Wazes Barazas, which don't apply the constitution and law effectively. End quote. So, you want to tell me that Maraga, a whole CJ, did not see this problem and did not put measures in place to ensure that all these issues are taken care of. So he was in charge of just one arm of government, and now he wants to run to be the top guy in charge of the executive and essentially being in charge of running the country. How sure are we that he's going to do a good job if he fails at this small job? Essentially, if Maraga had not had a very public and very politicized disagreement with President Uhuru, the appointment of the 41 judges would have alleviated the burden of case backlog. Maraga's ego could not allow him to take the L for the greater good. He just couldn't resist playing the game when 341,056 cases were pending, and I bet some guys were stuck in remand. And he was dick measuring with President Uhuru.
Wacha nicheke kwa sababu nafikiri kwa sababu ya hizo nguo wanavaa wanaona Wakenya wengine ni wajinga.
Let's look at what he did for ICT infrastructure. Have you visited the judiciary website? I do not know if they raised Abraham from the grave to design it with mud and sticks, but this shit sucks. This is what failures do. Overpromise and underdeliver. The guy who couldn't even set up a decent website, and no one can tell me that the website was good during his time as CJ, and went to shits after his exit. This is the guy that Gen Z selected as their candidate? Also, let's look at Maraga the activist. Out of all problems facing Kenyans, that shows failure of parliament as an example. Constant increases of salaries and allowances, siphoning of CDF monies, and the fact that parliamentarians get bribed by government and even NGOs to pass or reject certain bills, the best example being the finance bill, that have resulted in the overtaxation of Kenyans. Guess what the president of the Supreme Court of Kenya thought was so important that it required the dissolution of parliament? Just guess.
We begin tonight with a dramatic pronouncement from the Supreme Court seeking the dissolution of the 12th Parliament. Earlier this afternoon, Chief Justice David Maraga wrote to President Uhuru Kenyatta asking him to send the MPs home for failing to pass the 2/3 gender law.
Having women in parliament. Yes, you heard me right. Of all problems facing Kenyans, the thing he chose the hill he decided to die on was having women in parliament. I hope that gives you an idea of who Maraga is and his failures. And feel free to listen to his people when they tell you the good about Maraga, so that you can balance the good and the bad and make a decision. But remember, at the end of the day, you shall still be shafted in the behind without lube. Thank you for being with me. See you in the next one. Subscribe to the channel if not.